Helldivers just released the Truth Enforcer's Warbond, which includes 3 weapons, 2 armor sets, a new booster, and of course the normal gaggle of cosmetics that we're used to seeing. And before we get into a more intensive breakdown on the individual items, and of course the hits and misses of today's release, and yes there are some, I wanted to say up front my overall thoughts on this one is that it's pretty good. Welcome to the channel. This is LtBuzzLitebeer, and unfortunately, between testing and some last-second dumpster fire IRL projects that came raining down on me, my in-game time has been somewhat limited, but I do have the 2 main weapons unlocked, along with thoughts on the 3rd, along with the other main items, and yeah, again, this Warbond is, in my humble opinion, one of the better ones Arrowhead has pushed out. Now, we're going to get into it all in just a moment, but just in case you haven't yet hit subscribe, please consider doing so, as it's free and it really helps out the channel. And don't forget to ring the notifications bell to receive my latest upload alerts. And it's time to run through all the latest with Helldivers. Okay, very quickly over to the galactic map, and the current major order is looking better than it was 36 hours ago. We have 2 of 5 required automaton defenses completed, and another active right now on Demiurge. Pandion 24 is over 70% liberated, and we need that one done before we can then gain access to Crux for a necessary liberation there as well. And all of this we need to finish in just under 3 days' time. And that's basically all there is to it. Log on, hit a bot defense, help out over on Pandion, and eventually get Crux, and we stand a real chance of finishing this one up. Also, since the Truth Enforcer's Warbond is of course now live, and you'll be scrambling for every last medal you can get your hands on, today's daily or personal order for 15 medals is to kill 4 Bile Titans, and as always, this is shared across the squad. On to the Superstore. Oh, the Superstore. And this one was both very interesting, as in cool AF, but also jarring and also a bit disappointing. Now, for those of you wanting to live out your Gen Row, Wolf Brigade, or even Vader-esque roleplay fantasies within Helldivers, the UF-84 Doubt Killer medium armor set with Unflinching gives you that ability. And yes, you heard correctly, this is a medium armor set, breaking with the norm, as we already have a medium set in the Warbond. So if anyone at Arrowhead is out there and watching this, the first order of the day is to go into the game files and make this into a heavy armor set. Now, where this armor set gets jarring are the prices. Listen to this. There's 400 super creds you got to plop down for the armor, 200 for the helmet, 250 for a really basic black looking cape, and 75 for the player banner background. That's nearly as much as the entire Warbond cost just for this one armor set, which again is just insane. I had enough super creds saved up for both, but this was wild to see, especially because it broke from the norm of not providing an armor set we could not get in the Warbond, plus it also has this cape and the banner tacked on. Now, the look is unique. It's sick. I'll give them that. And in general, the drip factor for this entire Warbond is just maxed out. It's a 10 out of 10. But we need that armor switched over to heavy armor. Please, Arrowhead, and thank you. Before we move on, for overall spending, I wanted to mention to unlock the entire Warbond, planned on spending 631 medals. So it's pretty in line with previous Warbond offerings. And with that out of the way, let's talk about the primaries. And I liked actually both of these, but they have caveats to what they can and can't do. Let's start off with the SMG-32 Reprimand, Helldivers' first heavy SMG, which is basically just a better version of an assault rifle, but unfortunately, it is not one-handed. So no rocking the ballistic shield with this one, which would have been sick. I like using this shield. Anyways, 125 base damage is big, but it is offset by only 25 rounds in the mag. It has a low fire rate of 490 and one of the wildest recoil patterns you can imagine. It also has 3 fire modes you can toggle between: full auto, semi-auto, and 3-round burst fire. I'm sure there are plenty of videos out there going over all the individual and specific stats of this weapon, including all the breakpoints, but I'm just going to speak to the general terms of it. And overall, I really liked the Reprimand because it really fits my playstyle of run and gun. Anything past medium range and the damage drop-off is very noticeable, but in close and pushing the advantage, The Reprimand is quite strong. Firing a full auto ended up with me wasting and missing many of my shots, so I actually gravitated to 3-round burst fire, which was kind of surprising, and even semi-auto when behind cover and needing to land with accuracy. Now the power of the shots is where you really start to notice just how strong the Reprimand is. It hits, and very hard. Think of it as a baby adjudicator firing the same rounds as the Liberator. However, at least for me, I found it more effective versus bots than bugs. Now, I'm not saying you can't use it versus bugs, but fully dry HK slap reloads spread out to nearly 3 seconds, and that's a lot of time to give the hunters the leap and kill you. In full auto, the recoil is unruly, so plan on using some armor type with reduced recoil just to try to get a handle on this beast. But overall, the Reprimand, when in close quarters, can ravage most of the bot enemy types, and it's fairly effective at bugs as well. Look to page 2 to find this weapon on the Warbond, and plan on spending 40 medals to unlock it, which, in my humble opinion, is an absolute bargain. Personally, I love versatility and utility in my primary weapons, and the SG-20 Halt shotgun gives me both. Now, as someone that uses the Punisher Plasma quite a bit, the SG-20 felt natural in certain areas and completely foreign in others. Whereas the Reprimand is medium armor pen for all of its rounds, the Halt has light armor pen shock rounds and medium armor pen flechette rounds. And then you need to think of it as a Punisher and a Slugger kind of thrown together in a blender, and it has separate tubes for each ammo type. Now, where the Halt gets a bit funky, especially on mouse and keyboard, was toggling between the ammo types. The most effective way I found of using it was to shock a few targets, toggle over, destroy them with the flechette rounds, and then rinse and repeat. Now, depending on which ammo you have selected, you can reload that tube from a total available ammo count of 60 shells. And overall, I preferred this weapon versus the bugs, but it can be used versus the bots. Again, that's up to you. Blasting the head straight off of Alpha Commanders and Warriors felt great, and even the medium targets like Bile Spewers are easy enough to deal with when using the Halt. It's also very useful versus heavier targets like, say, a Hulk, where you can stun it and then run behind it, switch to the flechette rounds, and dump a few of those into its heatsink, and it's bye-bye baby. Now, in terms of ratings for the weapons, I would say the Reprimand would be somewhere, and this might be a little shocking, around S to A tier on the bots, where I used it primarily, while the Halt is A to B tier, probably on both factions. Having the ability to stun and slap your targets in one weapon is a nice feature. Anytime you can inflict damage and AoE, that's a bonus, but as expected, it's slightly less powerful than weapons that specialize in using just one of those attack methods. And I did want to briefly touch on the Plas 15 Loyalist based on a few interactions I've had with it, and it has the Plas 101 purifier mechanics of quick fire or fully charged up shots, of which I would highly recommend you charge it up, as the damage output difference here is just dramatic. It's very effective for charging on the run and then firing backwards at targets that are following you. Now, would I take it over the dagger or the grenade pistol? Maybe. Sometimes. It really depends on how I'm feeling. Also, don't immediately write off the dead sprint booster, as yes, it does trade your health for prolonged stamina, allowing you to run for very long periods of time, but it can also be offset just a bit by using the vitality booster in groups. Remember that sprint speed is your key to staying alive in Helldivers. You run out of stamina and it's over, and many movements, even the jump pack, uses stamina, so having more of it is never a bad thing. Now, I still want to do some more testing on this one, but Dead Sprint might be my squad's go-to, ousting stamina as long as we have the Vitality booster also equipped. And finally, the new armor sets, the Bloodhound and the Inspector. Now, the drip factor on both of these sets are tremendous. Full red and full white really stand out, and overall, I love the designs of both. The unflinching passive, though, is something I have not had time to test out, but my gut feeling here is that the positive effects it will give players are going to be minimal. Plus, as I mentioned earlier, we weren't given the heavy armor variant option in the Superstore, so that's a big miss on Arrowhead's part. Also, on a quick side note, let's call it more of a word of caution before I go, but I did want to make mention that the recent changes to controllers and inputs for stratagems, yeah, PC players were caught up in there as well. And since I use WASD in a tap sequence, it doesn't affect me. But for any PC players out there that hold the last key of their stratagem sequence, especially W, so that they can move forward, this new change has made it so your player cannot move in that direction. You're just completely locked out. So, for example, if your sequence ends in a right arrow, for us on PC, that's the D key. Once you finish keying in that sequence, and if you're one of those players out there that holds the last key down, the game, at least after these recent changes, will not allow you to move to the right until you release that held key, the D key, and then press it down again to move. Now, it sounds of such little consequence, but trust me, for players that are used to holding the last key in the sequence, this change Arrowhead made is a literal nightmare for them. A quick edit on this one as well. I did reach out to the comms team, and they were nice enough to respond. They let me know that this is on the team's radar, and they are looking into it. And here's fingers crossed that they can get this one figured out sooner than later. All right, so it's time for the overall verdict on the Truth Enforcer's Warbond. Should you buy it? And as always, I'm going to be honest with you. There are two items I do want to mention here. First is that you spend your super creds on what you want to spend it on. But if you have the necessary super credits to pick it up, I recommend you do so. Overall, the two primaries are strong and useful. The secondary isn't bad. The booster is different than the 4 horsemen we always choose, and it gives you that all-important sprint ending on 1 HP, so it's not going to kill you, and the armor sets just look incredible. But as always, I want to hear what you have to say on all of it. Remember to hit subscribe and ring that notifications bell to receive my latest upload alerts. All my socials can be found in the video description. A massive thank you goes out to the nearly 247,000 of you incredible ladies and gents from across the planet that have stuck with me. You've taken the time to hit subscribe, and you tune in daily to support me and the channel. Until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer signing off.